And we're back, now connecting to the final speaker for today, Jakub Vamberský, Community Manager of DayZ at Bohemia Interactive. And connecting to him right now. Hello, Jakub.
All good.
Good. We're all ready to listen to your presentation too. Good luck.
Great. Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Jakub, and today I'm going to try to tell you something about the importance of individual approach in community management. I have been watching all the presentations of community managers, the awesome community managers in front of me, and I've been sort of like sinking into desperation because they were telling exactly the same thing I wanted to say. But I will still try to make it interesting for you guys because I will try to focus on something that is very close to my heart, and that is really focusing on the one-on-one communication in community management, and maybe explain to you how you can utilize it, what are the benefits, and maybe also talk about some of the risks. So first of all, I'm going to tell you something about what to expect from this presentation. I will briefly introduce myself so that you know I'm not bullshitting or anything. I am a community manager and I have been for a long time now. I will give you some brief insight, because you've heard it before, brief insight into the community management. Give you some basic tips on what to do if you want to create your community from the scratch. I will also try to, maybe give you some advice from my experience. Then we'll jump more to the main topic, which is the individual approach. And then I will try to give you some examples from my work where I applied it and what were the results. At the end, we'll have a look at some of the challenges that this approach poses, and we can conclude. So without further ado, let's try to start with who the hell am I? My name is Jakub Vamberský. I have been community manager for over 5 years now, I believe. These are all the games I have worked on. Before I started, I tried to count how many games I've actually worked on. It's 14, and it's all across different platforms, different genres, and so on. So I had the pleasure of knowing all the different communities and all the different, content, and basically like all there is to know. And still I am aware of the fact that I have still a lot to learn about community management, because like it is constantly evolving, right? And you have to really keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening and what are the new trends and what are the new maybe like ways how to connect with your community. So what is community management? I mean, we have heard it over and over again, but for the sake of consistency of the presentation, I will try to explain again. For me, community management is sitting right there in the middle of this beautiful Venn diagram. It is part customer support, because you're trying to help people, you're trying to solve some issues that they might be having, you're also collecting their feedback and so on. It is part marketing, because you are boosting sales, you're boosting conversion, you are building the brand of your studio, of your game. PR, of course, there's a lot of communication with, not only with community, but also with press, with influencers who actually might be part of your community and should be if you're doing your job well. What I try to always like visualize what community management is for me, and I think that the image that I get in my head is that a community manager is like a big fat spider sitting in a web that he has weaved over the years. And on this web, we have all the different entities, like your customers, which are your players. You also have the company employees, you have your business partners and so on. You have influencers, you have the press, like I mentioned, you even have like company pets and so on. Everything is connected if you're doing your job well. And then as that spider, you send out an information maybe, and through these contacts that you've established, that information is going to be spreading all around that web. And it's going to, if it works, it should work the other way around as well. If something happens in that community, like for example, there's a bug, people are reporting it, there's a suggestion, people are reporting it, there's a request for interview or something like that, through that web, it should all get back to you. It doesn't necessarily need to be from point A to point B, but that is the web where it can go through from A to B to C to your final destination. So community manager here is a big spider. Well, I mean, brain is probably a good metaphor that works as well. I probably should have gone with that. So you're a big brain and this is your nervous system, all right? So let's go with that one. But yeah, the community manager is the center point of that. Why is community management important? I think that once again, this has been explained, and I will just briefly go through this. Community management is serving many purposes. Some of the most important ones, of course, you are building the brand identity, and you are increasing the brand awareness by your communication and your interactions. You are also increasing the understanding of your customers. Because you are, on day-to-day basis communicating with them. They are sharing their grievances. They are sharing their they are sharing their positive feedback. Let's say, so you know what they like, you know what they dislike. This is incredibly valuable for your brand and for your game. Let's say. Community is also an incredibly powerful tool for collecting the feedback, of course. Like especially today when you have really big games, and DayZ happens to be that big game, it is almost impossible to test everything with every single update. So community is instrumental in this, where, for example, right now, and this is also what I've been doing today, we are releasing experimental updates, which are updates focused solely on the community, where the players will have access to an update that is not released yet, and they will have the chance to test it and offer feedback to us. This is like a temporary testing army, so incredibly useful, and community managers need to work with that and extract valuable information from this. Of course, like I said, it is partly marketing as well. So you are definitely boosting your conversions, your sales, if there are, the drill, basic stuff. You're also offering support to your customers, happy customers, everybody's happy. What is important also is the fact that Janneke was talking about this at length, and that is that if you are working well with the community, they will be able to supply you with their community content, and that community content can then be used for your communication, for your marketing, and so on. So this is, like they say, the joke, like this is free real estate, right? This is free content that you can use at any point. And right now, because DayZ has been out for years now, and there is not much marketing focus on it and creation of new assets and so on. So we are just using the community and using this established engine of creation of marketing assets to actually produce new things almost every day without doing anything. And at the end, of course, and this is going to be a huge topic later in the presentation, you are creating a network of ambassadors, of influencers, of community artists, and so on. So all these things are why community management is incredibly important. Unfortunately, it's not always considered as such, because many times you are looking at job openings and there are community manager is there as we're looking for a junior person to start our community management and so on. And I don't really believe that that's the best way to go about it. I really feel like community management is something that you should not focus on it as an entry position, but you should consider it as a position where you need to have experienced people who know what they're doing, and preferably are teaching another new generation almost of new community managers. So what is special about our field of community management, about the video game field? We are blessed that we are working in this industry, which is currently the biggest entertainment industry on the planet. The entertainment here is a key word, because people love it, And when they love it, they're extremely passionate about it. And as long as people are passionate about it, there will be communities, there will be love, there will be hate, there will be toxicity, there will be all the most amazing stuff and all the like bad stuff as well. And this is the role of community manager as well, to somehow navigate the ship between, you know, these two currents and somehow extract all the important things from this. Of course, video games are also art. I know that there are, especially the older generations are going to be telling you that no, video games are not art. They are. More work goes into video games than probably writing a book, you know, because like you have armies of extremely talented people who are working day and night on many different aspects of the game to put it together and create one amazing art. And of course, with art, there is always going to be opinions. And these opinions are subjective, right? So once again, video game community management, it is going to be very much affected by this, by people's passion and people's likes and dislikes. What is also super important is that since this is entertainment and interactive entertainment, people have been playing games since they were kids. And they feel like they understand, even maybe without actually really understanding what is going on in game development. This is like every day we're going to have somebody who says like, oh, just introduce this thing and the game is going to be perfect. But this thing that they're introducing, that they're proposing, it is impossible to do in a year or in 2 years. So this is something that is also very specific to community management, where people think that they understand without really understanding the deep lore, you know? Okay, let's get down to business. If you want to build a community from scratch, there are a couple of things that you should consider. First one is you need to think about why you want to build that community. This is a really good book that I recommend. It's Start With Why. Maybe some of you have heard it. Whenever you do something, whenever you start a process, whenever you do something in this industry or any industry or in your life, first try to think about why am I doing this and what is the preferred outcome. If you're building a community just because you feel like you should, because everybody else is doing it, maybe it's time to go back to the board and think about it some more. Hopefully, like the presentations like this and of my colleagues are going to help you with that, because there are really good reasons why you should build your community and not underestimate it. You should definitely find out who your customers are. I hate calling them customers. I will be calling them players. So you should know who your players are. You should know where they hang out. You should know what communication they prefer. You should also be aware of the fact that your customers are going to be different, you know, every single time. And I can like try to generalize it and spread them into or group them into two groups. First one is going to be the hardcore community, which is going to be consuming everything that you're going to say across all the social media, across, well, everything basically. All your communication is going to be consumed and shared within this hardcore community. And then you're going to have a softcore community, which is going to be, you know, here and there, understanding this, hearing this, and then they're going to be like, hey, is it true that this happened, and so on. My preferred way of handling community management is to focus on the hardcore community and inform them to the best of our abilities, so that then from this hardcore community, you can grow mods, you can grow ambassadors, you can grow macro influencers, you can grow the artists and so on. And then these guys are informing the softcore community. So once again, this big fat spider or big brainy brain metaphor is coming back here. Also, of course, you should consider that every single communication that you're going to be doing should be tailored to the channel that you are using for that communication. This is also a common mistake where you have a beautiful picture, you create a beautiful like announcement or something like that, like, hey gamers, this is happening and this is happening, and you're going to share it across all social media. That is not advisable in my experience, because every single network is going to, it's like tribes, you know, every single network is a tribe and they have almost their own language. And the best way to understand this tribe is to be part of it, to be a user. So if you want to communicate on Twitch, for example, it is best if you are a part of some community or you're watching some streamers. Actually, this is just a side note. Watching streamers is a perfect way how to improve yourself in community management. You don't necessarily, in my opinion, need to be a streamer, but watching streamers and how they interact with the community and how they work with community is super important for my work. And I have learned a lot, and it also affected my thinking about community management and why I really love the one-on-one approach in community management. At the end, of course, you should consider what you released, somehow evaluate it and then optimize it so that you are able to generate more engagement from that community. At the end, measure success. If everything is super cool, improve it. If everything is not so good, also improve it. So improving is a process that never ends. Best practices in community management. I emphasize that this is my approach to this, so that you can quote me on this, but don't say that this is some general rules, please. So for me, what always worked is if you set a clearly defined rules and then try to enforce them. Please do try to enforce these rules that you are imposing, because you should lead by example. Community managers are also community leaders. And if you're setting up some rules that you then don't follow, it really doesn't set a good example, and it can be manifested very negatively in the community. You should monitor what's happening in the community. That way you can predict where it's some sort of drama brewing or something like this. I mean, we're having drama almost every day because our community is super passionate, and right now they're in between updates, so they're a bit bored. So they're looking for, and that's like fights between different servers are happening, fights between influencers are happening, and so on. So if you are monitoring this, you can predict it and maybe even stop it at the right time. Frequently engage, that is super important. That is something that I do and something that I will always try to do in community management, is frequently engage with your users. Of course, listen and appreciate feedback. Here is a very useful note. If you know that people are proposing something and you already know that that something is being worked on, make a note who proposed this, because you know that maybe in a month or something you will be able to name drop him and say, hey, thank you for proposing this feature. It is extremely useful. That way you're going to generate, well, not only loyalty, but almost love, Try to be transparent. Sometimes I know that it's difficult. Well, try to be transparent as much as you're allowed to, and own up to your mistakes. Don't try to say, hey, this is not something that we did, and so on. You know that you did it. They know that you did it. Just say, hey, we fucked up. Of course, be yourself. In my experience, that always helps. And try to have fun. That is really important. Try to have fun, because we're working in an industry that is defined by, I mean, if this was a live presentation, I would be asking you, right, give me some words that you associate with gaming. I'm sure that some of them would be passion, fun, excitement, entertainment. So try for your communication to reflect that. We are in video game business. We're not in some, selling washing machines or something like that. Now, finally, the main topic. The individual approach in community management. This is something that is really close to my heart, and I tried it, and I have had really nice results. It might seem counterintuitive if you want to talk to masses and you want to spread one information to everybody, to focus on individuals. But actually, in the long run, it is actually going to be paying off. Because the key here is that you should be selecting people that you're focusing on. I mean, okay, well, let me just say this before people are commenting in the chat. I'm not saying that you should focus only on one-on-one conversation. You should combine it definitely with one-to-many and one-to-one. And you should definitely select a time of your day when you're focusing strictly on talking to one-on-one conversations, when you're talking to community leaders, when you're talking to influencers, when you're talking to just regular guys who have issues and so on. It is going to be paying off, because at the end, what is going to happen is that you are going to be doing this for so long that these people that you are informing and you are talking to are going to become that network that is going to start spreading that message. And if, talking to millions of people, it's hard, man. And what you should do is definitely build a team. Like your Avengers, but in this case, your Avengers might be a couple of thousand of people. And these thousands of people can then transmit the message to a million people. So this is the basic idea about the individual communication. Also, this individual communication is going to be helpful, super helpful, when you're going to be growing your community members. So you imagine you have a regular Joe who has an issue. You're going to start talking with him on Twitter, tell him, hey, this is how you solved an issue. He's going to be thanking you. Next day, he has another issue and he's like, hello again. You say hello again, and so on. And every day, this person is going to be really well informed, and this person is going to have a close relationship with you, and this person is going to become a community leader or maybe a community manager that is then going to be commenting under or like active on forums and so on, and commenting instead of you, and helping people out whenever they need it and whenever you're not available. How to apply this approach? So first and super important thing is you should get to know your community. When I started working on DayZ, first thing I did, I asked who are the most important, like who are the most active and important people in the community. Once I knew that, so usually it's mods on forums, mods on Discord, owner of Reddit or something like that. You should first of all introduce yourself, be polite, right? You say, hey, I'm new, I might be asking a couple of questions and so on. And this first thing that you're sort of like show that you're vulnerable is going to build that trust, and then you can go from there. And like building this relationship is absolutely instrumental. I cannot stress that enough. When you're going to be establishing these relationship with the community leaders, you will then have that team, like I described, that is going to be helping you and is going to be like, this is like chain reaction, where these guys are then have their own, people like community pillars in their communities, and then and spreads and it spreads and it spreads. It's also super helpful when it works the other way around, where people that you are familiar with are going to be reporting you feedback from the community back to you, and even you will not have to scroll through every thread on your forums, but you will have people that you trust who will be saying like, hey, this issue came up on forums, you should probably address it. What is extremely important when you're growing these members of the community is that take the time and create an activity where you appreciate them. In my previous project, which was called Shadowgun Legends, what we did was we created naming of the fan of the week. So we were naming community members of the week, depending on what they were doing. So some of them were perhaps artists, some of them were just super helpful in the community somewhere. And by naming these guys and sending them some goodies, immediately they felt like they belong to you, to the family that you have created, because then the community transforms into family. And for them, it is really that serious because they are extremely passionate about the project. So really take that time to establish these relationships. And what is super important also in my experience is that you should definitely let your personality somehow seep into your communication. Let's just say that leave the politics and religion out of the conversation, but you are a person. And if the people that you're communicating with know that you're a person, it is going to be extremely helpful to you, because you're all of a sudden not a faceless corporation that just produces an update here, update there, but you're representing humans, and this might be something automatic for you, but this is something that is not automatic for the guys, for the players. So also spend an effort to show your face here and there on those videos, like my colleagues discussed. Stream, do like Instagram stories or something like that, anything where they know who you are. Even when you're like communicating with your personal accounts somewhere, when you're not at work, they will appreciate it. So I will try to explain and apply this, what I just described on the previous project that I worked on, which was Shadowgun Legends. And then I will try to also tell you about what I'm trying to do here at Bohemia Interactive on DayZ. So Shadowgun Legends is a sequel to a really beloved multiplayer game that was released on iOS and Android, so mobile game. The problem of this game was that it was very different from what its predecessor was. And we had a really difficult task of convincing the community that they should care and that it's not a different franchise almost, that it's part of the same family and the same franchise. And the community from that previous game is going to translate somehow into the new one. What we tried to do is that we applied the, I think it was Vladimir who was talking about this, that we applied this approach that every single question, every single comment should be answered. So we did that. This helped tremendously because then people were informed and they started to inform other people who had the same questions. The same thing happened with I remember where you remember when I was talking about the hardcore and the softcore community. We established weekly streaming where we were monitoring, where we were documenting the development, and then once the game was released, we were playing the game with the community and name dropping some of the players from the community and praising them and so on. This became a platform for the hardcore community where they got all the super important information, maybe even the information that we were not supposed to release, but it's live, what can you do? And what happened was that this happened, that the hardcore community then went after the stream, immediately after the stream, they went on Facebook, then went on Twitter, they went everywhere, and they started like dissecting the stream and telling everybody like all the softcore part of the community, what's preparing and to what we're working on. Please do encourage community submissions of anything. Videos, it can be fun art, it can be, handcrafted item, anything, we even got some poems in the past. So please encourage that, because if you encourage that, you are building an environment where people are not afraid to express themselves. And when they do, it becomes a really nice environment for everybody. And you also get some really nice stuff for your office. I mean, we were like putting stuff on our walls, and it started looking really well. In the end, we managed to create a really nice community where people befriended themselves and also us. And in the end, even the community that was very against the new game accepted it, and in the end it resulted in 1.5 million pre-registered players before the launch of the game without spending any money on user acquisition. What I'm trying to do here at DayZ is to actually apply the same principles on DayZ. DayZ is a bit specific because DayZ has been out for a long time, and it also has been a very popular mod, and then it changed into a full-fledged game. There have been a lot of promises made, and sometimes they were like the developers were not able to keep up with the promises, and which resulted in some tensions with the community. On the other hand, DayZ is extremely popular, and it has that X factor, right? So people love it, and people are extremely passionate about it. So what happens every day on social media is that you have these two camps which are fighting, which are like, hey, you guys promised this, and then the advocates are going to be like, so it also creates a very negative environment on your social media where people are constantly arguing. This approach where then what I'm trying to do is explain to these people why we took these steps and what's happening, and I'm trying to limit the negativity on the social media, and it is working like a charm, at least so far. I have to knock because yeah, I'm super pleased about this. We have also identified our primary channel, which is the Twitter right now. We're trying to like communicate with almost everybody who somehow engages in communication with us. I tried to increase transparency a little bit because DayZ has been a very black boxy, where all of a sudden there was an update. So we're trying to open this up as well. There are some very good points why we are not doing completely transparent development. But like I said, transparency, even partial transparency, is always better than no transparency at all. Also, I'm trying to, like I said, let the personality seep into the communication. So my Twitter communication has been noticed as entertaining sometimes, which is also good because it spreads the awareness. People are more retweeting and so on, and that's exactly what you want. So yeah, and also, like I said, because we have started this more one-on-one communication, people are more inclined to share stuff. People are more inclined to submit some sort of art ideas and so on, and they know that we listen all of a sudden. The presence is known, basically. That's what is happening. So the future plans for DayZ right now is that this is not enough. They need to we need to do the extra step and make ourselves known, right? Show our faces and open it up even more, and actually start streaming, and then start the things that we have been talking about, like appreciating the individuals in the community on the streams where everybody else can see it. And then these people who you appreciate will start sharing it everywhere. And you are going to really change the sentiment of the community from arguing to praising and like really becoming much more friendly. The challenges of this approach are not few, there are many. I just tried to select a couple. It is very time consuming at the start because you are starting to develop this web. And this web in its time is going to pay off and is going to be much more easier for you to handle, because then you're going to have those contacts that are going to be helping you with either spreading the message or receiving the message. You should also be aware of the fact that you will be doing mistakes. If you're going to increase your one-to-one communication, you are increasing the likelihood of you making a mistake. And we're working in this industry and we know what's happening. People are print screening every conversation, and this is going to become public. So it is going to happen. You are going to mess up at some point, and this, like, if you increase one-to-one conversations, it is going to happen. You should be aware that toxicity is still going to be a thing. If you're going to start talking more to people, somebody will notice, and the usual, hey, why are you talking? Why are you not developing? Is going to happen. What is important, though, is that you should be very careful and differentiate between people who are just frustrated, because these people usually love the game so much that they hate it, if that makes any sense. They want certain changes so much that they are willing to go that as far as to call you, lazy, idiots, and much worse. But if you identify these people well and then turn them and show them that we do care and we actually are introducing changes, and actually the changes that this person requires, it is that easy, and you can turn this person into an ambassador. This has happened multiple times in the past, and these people become extremely loyal. On the other hand, you are definitely going to have that couple of % of people who are just going to be assholes, and there's not much you can do about it except for muting them or just removing them from the community, because they are focused on nothing else but to spread hate and toxicity. The general rule is don't feed the trolls. I mean, I can get behind that. I had some minor successes in trolling the trolls, but it's double-edged sword and doesn't really work out in the general scheme of things. And yes, like I said, it is very time-consuming, at least from the start. If you're establishing your community, it is going to take you some time before this pays off, but in the end, it will pay off. And I believe that's, the conclusion here. So we can just run through it real quick. Please do take time to engage one-on-one communication. At least dedicate an hour or two every day to do this. I know that you will probably not be able to cover everything because we have communities of millions of people, but the effort is noticeable. The effort is noticed by the community. Show the appreciation to everybody who's going to engage in the community. please do grow those community leaders, because you are going to grow dependent on them. Utilize them in your community management, have them help you. They are very eager because they share your passion. Support the community content creators, and learn from your mistakes, because you are going to do them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to keep repeating the same mistakes, that is not great. So learn from your mistakes. And that's, I believe, it. So you might have time for questions.
Thank you very much, Jakub, for a fantastic presentation. It was really interesting. And we have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yep.
The very first one from Dejan Cosset. Well, actually says that totally agrees with your vision and reasoning for the job, and recommended the book Start, for instance, like Start with Why. This requires freedom for you as a community manager, but do you personally get this? And do you know if there are any situations when there is no such freedom?
Sorry, can you repeat the question about freedom?
So this, generally, it requires a lot of freedom for you to, as a community manager. And
right, okay, I get it. I got it.
Yep.
So yes, this really depends on who your employers are and what your management is and how far they allow you to go. I am lucky enough that I am working in a team where they allowed a lot of freedom to me in terms of communication and in terms of how I built my community strategy. So yes, you are definitely going to encounter companies where this is going to be a no-go, but hopefully this presentation will be useful, where you are going to be able to argument and tell them that there are benefits and it is worth the time invested.
Thank you very much. And the next question. Is there a big pressure from the company for you as a community manager to perform certain targets? It feels like a creative job that needs a lot of freedom.
Yes, that's a good question. Once again, this really depends, and it differs from company to company. In my case, I of course have some goals, and with this approach, we were able to reach those goals, which is sort of like a proof that it works. But yeah, I imagine that there is going to be companies which are going to be giving you goals without allowing you that freedom, and then that is a problem, because if you have those goals and you know that you would be able to reach them by using a different approach and you're not allowed to, you basically have your hands tied and you cannot perform your job well.
Okay, well, fair enough. Thank you. Another question from me. You know how all companies try to create and maintain very positive brand image, but what happens if you actually screwed up? What do you do? How do you act with your community? Do you actually say that, okay, guys, our bad, sorry about that, we're going to make it better, or just pretend that nothing happened?
I definitely would. And we have done this before, and I would like to do it even more, where of course, we cannot say that we completely fucked up everything. What we can do is to say that this is not meeting our expectations. We're definitely going to be working on that, and we're asking for your feedback. This is the way how I would word it. So saying like, hey, this is bad update, is not the best way to go about it, even though it might be true. What you should be doing is to word it differently and turn it to your advantage when you are actually asking the people to help you out.
Thank you very much. And what is your policy towards cheaters?
Oh, right. So there is no, how do they say this? We don't like it and we ban them. That's basically it. So no tolerance.
Straightforward.
No tolerance policy, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you very much. There is another question from Yulia Nikitina. Can you tell us a bit more about contacting famous influencers like Complain of Play and The Brain Did?
There are specific, this is a question about specific influencers?
Well, just generally how do you work with influencers, I guess.
Right, okay. So from my experience, the best way to, first of all, you need to establish some sort of communication. So contacting the influencer, that is probably the most tricky part. because a lot of them are working with agents nowadays, and you are going to encounter, like some sort of middle guy who's going to be saying, hey, I need money for this and I need money for that, and why should I care? What is the best way is to find out where this person is actually on his own and is communicating as himself or herself. I very often do that. I visit their streams and I interact as the DayZ Twitter account, and actually start the communication with them. Sorry. Like. And also Twitter is super useful for that, because many influencers there are going to be engaged in conversation with you, and they are not managed by some middleman. So this is the way how I go about it. I either contact them somewhere where I know that it's them communicating, or go directly to where they're broadcasting and just get their attention.
Thank you very much. And another question from Kevin Wally. Are there any common mistakes that you as a new community manager should look out for? Because basically there is a lot of freedom, but there is no set rule book. So how do you evaluate that?
Don't take it personally. I would say probably the two things that come to mind immediately is you should empathize with the players all the time. There is somebody who's hating on you. You should try to look at the issue from their perspective. Maybe there are somebody who have loved the game for a long time, and then something changed, and now they so try to perceive it from their perspective. And the other part is that keep your distance. I know that these might seem like they're sort of in conflict, but definitely keep your distance. I have had this happen to me multiple times, where I started caring too much, and I tried not to, but I perceived the players which I interacted on daily basis with as friends. When then something changed and they started hating the game, I took it personally, and you should never do that. That is like the first thing that I would tell to every single new community manager.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned about people like trolls and like toxic people, but how do you, well, obviously you still have to work with them on a like regular basis. How do you actually, maybe do you have any tricks that you could recommend to, just to kind of get out of this, like about all the toxic stuff that happened to you during the day, and just, relax, set your mind off it, or like, do you have any techniques maybe that you use? Or just like, I don't know, hobbies maybe?
There is, this is going to sound really bad, and I'm not trying to be mean, but usually like these trolls and these smartasses on the social media are humans, and they are. What I do is I basically this is really like, consider this like a really quirky tip. If somebody pisses you off so much that you really want to write something bad, don't. But just look at his profile picture, and just say, hey, this person is probably really miserable. That's what I do. And then this calls it down,
So you just basically interact with the picture.
I'm not screaming at the picture, but yeah, I'm trying to like imagine why the person so pissed off.
Okay, thank you. That's a good advice, I guess.
It doesn't work only in community management. You can use this advice anytime.
Well, we may or may not as well. Another question from Dmitry Chik. How do you deal with situations when you need to solve an urgent problem, like super urgent problem, but you can't do it at this moment? What do you do then?
Okay, that's a very good question. I'm going to try to think of an example. Usually, if this is involving somehow a public statement, you need to address it somehow. So you can say, hey, we're having this issue and we're going to address it as fast as possible, because I myself usually cannot do anything that would endanger the game itself. This is usually something game breaking happens in the game. What I can do only at this point is to announce that we're aware of it, and as soon as possible, we're going to let them know as soon as it's fixed or addressed. If I myself am going to be in this position, just breathe, you know, just don't panic.
Yeah, I guess that's applicable in any job
Anywhere.
and
Yes.
very important indeed. I
Yes.
agree with you on that.
Yes.
One more question from Dejan Cosette. So, what would you advise for the new or like soon to be community managers now? Where do you start? What do you do? Maybe what literature you read, or any advice would be good.
Okay. Good advice here would be, because I imagine this person is a gamer. I imagine this person is trying to apply to a studio where, I mean, the studio is making a games that that particular person loves. So what I would definitely recommend is checking out their communication, checking out their social media, then maybe checking out somebody who they know that their communication is completely stellar. I always really adored, for example, Star Citizen and their community management, because since they're crowdfunded, they really invested a lot of effort and resources into their community management. So I'm looking at like the goal, you know, the holy grail of community management, and then I try to look back at the company I want to work for and say what I could actually take from these people that I admire and apply there. Once I do that, then I can like propose it, and this is always something that gets the attention when you're trying to apply somewhere, to have a vision of where you want to go. I would also recommend the Start With Why. This is a good book, not just for community management, but this is a good book for anything and for your thinking about life. And I would also like advise, probably once again, not stress too much, because stress is a creativity killer, and it can really like jeopardize your work.
Thank you. And with the creativity you just mentioned, like how do you actually what happens, you know, sometimes you just get kind of over what you're doing, you're tired or you're not motivated, and you know it's like a cycle. So do you have any advice on that as well? Well, taking that you actually do love your job, but just, you know, just starting.
Yes, I mean, this is we're getting into like super personal territory, where at a certain point in my past, I had to take a break because I was completely devastated by, you know, the workload and the negativity and so on. So this might not be the best advice for anyone, but I went for 1 month into the mountains and just, you know, hung out with a bunch of kids and taught them in the school.
Oh.
To learn how to meditate. This also helps not only in community management but anywhere. And just you know, for every person there is something that works, and for me it might be this, for some person it might
Fair
be
enough.
for some person it might be books. Find that thing that calms you down, find that your space where you're on your own and where you can think and where you can like break this cycle of, you know, hectic lifestyle and coronavirus and everything. Just go for a run or something, find that your thing that is yours and make it your own, and have it like a safe haven for you. I don't know.
Sounds like a very good plan and advice to me.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jakub, for coming, well, joining us today here. It was fantastic to have you. Guys, if you have any more questions, please do feel free to ask them in the Q&A with speakers chat on the platform. Thank you. Have a fantastic day and hopefully see you soon in person.
Hopefully see you soon. Thank you for having me. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.